Louis, I wanted to talk a little bit about this album. You got involved
Hmm.
in 2010.
Yeah,
A beautiful piece of work. Could you give
thank
me a
you.
little bit of a resume about that, how that came about? Your name is on it an awful lot. And that Chris Evans got on there somehow. How?
I think it's because we basically both of us had been following this group of young Swedes based in Malmö who
Mm,
had been doing some absolutely exquisite music
mm,
and called Test Built. And I really recommend anybody who's watching this or listening to this to have a look and try and find music by Test Built with an exclamation mark
absolutely.
at
And
the
this one in
end.
particular,
Yeah,
Ocean Tango.
yeah, which is and we I became very very friendly with Peter Herbertson, who was the leader, basically the main songwriter in that band,
Mm,
and we thought, well, we should really do something together because we have so much actually in common in terms
mm,
of our approach to music.
mm.
And we did. And we did some of it. We did kind of long distance.
Wow.
I was working with Ken in Primrose Hill in London,
Okay.
and he was working in Malmö with his friends. But then we got together and we put everything together in Sweden. We had this huge rehearsal room, and we just finessed the record, and then we mixed it in London, I believe. I think almost nobody has heard of this record, which is a pity, which is due to the
Mm.
fact that Peter is somebody who really believes in almost like guerrilla music, as in he doesn't want to play the game at all.
I
And
understand that.
what he wants is just to create art. And
Yeah.
it is genuinely a work of art. I'm very proud of this record. I contributed quite a few songs,
Really.
original songs.
Mm.
I played and sang on every single one of them and reciprocally. So, yeah, it's a bit of it was an interesting parenthesis, let's put it that way.
Mm.
They're
Was
still going and they're still as good as ever, by the way.
Yeah, I was in touch with him a little while ago, and he's quite a shy guy, isn't he? I think quite reserved. And
Yes,
I
it's
respect that.
just yeah, absolutely. And but we it's quite shy not to always believe me, but
Okay.
he's first and foremost an artist and
Yeah.
somebody who has a very exacting idea of what an artist should be. Somebody who's immense culture, film culture, amongst other things, who
Okay.
made me discover actually quite a few things in cinema, which surprised me a bit at the time, but I discovered a lot of things thanks to him. And also a great admirer of British jazz, the kind of more imaginative, more experimental stuff that was done in the late 60s, early 70s,
Mm.
which was also a scene that I didn't know much about until I met with Peter and we started to listen to things like Symphony of Amaranth, and I realized that there was this whole new world of extraordinary
Magical.
music. Yeah, absolutely extraordinary music. But anyway, so that was but the record is did absolutely nothing because to be honest, that's almost in it was almost like the making of the record was the point of it
Yeah.
rather than the diffusion,
Okay.
which I'm a little bit which explains that why one of the songs that I actually wrote for this record I actually re-recorded with the Night Mail and will be on the new album in a
Okay.
different arrangement because I thought it was too good a song just to be forgotten. And so
Okay.
there
We'll
you
wait to
go.
see which one that one is. You
Okay,
won't tell us, of
absolutely. No,
course.
I won't tell you. No, of course
No, of
not.
course not. But and was that did it have any success in Japan? Because you've got this great connection
No,
with Japan. No, not at all either. No,
not at all. Completely
no,
went under the radar.
under the radar.
I would go as far as thinking it was never really properly released.
Yeah, yeah. It was
I
it on a
know.
label? It's on a label, of course. Yeah, he's on. But
Yeah, it's on the label, which is created specifically for this particular record, and
what
yeah,
I don't understand this stuff, Louis. It's a mystery to me. And it's going back to your some of your older music. You had a great hit in France, and
hmm
they didn't on airplay, and there
yes,
wasn't even a record in the stores. This sort of thing. I mean,
yeah.
what goes
Story of my life.
what? How did that
Um,
happen? It's crazy.
Well, it was actually the record which is behind you there. I can see it with the Yellow Sun, this guy here. And the lead single for that album called Sunshine,
Beautiful
which
album.
was, thank you, which was released in Japan, which was released in France, and released was it in Spain, maybe I can't remember. Anyway,
Okay.
had a decent release.
Yeah.
And the lead single from the album, French song called L'hiver te va bien,
Superb song.
was picked up by French radio.
Mm,
And he actually went up and up until it actually came into the top 30.
right. Yeah.
And exactly at that time, the record label, which was distributing it in France, WMD, went bankrupt.
Ah, ah.
That very week.
No.
Yes. And so the record couldn't be found anywhere.
Oh, wow.
And it's, it happens. I mean, sliding doors and all that. Who knows? Maybe the album would have been a success on the back of it. Maybe it would have sold, a few copies and would have, felt a bit better about ourselves, financially speaking, as well.
Exactly.
And maybe it would have changed everything. Maybe it would have ruined everything. I don't know. But I
I
mean,
don't
this
think
is
I can't see how
it's
it could.
well, it's something that's happened a few times to me in the past. As in, like for example, I had one single, one song that was actually number one on campus radio in the
Yeah.
United States, which is a pretty big deal, and
Sure.
which is called just called "She Means Everything to Me" from the Jackie Girl album, which you've
Beautiful. Yeah.
also got
Absolutely.
behind you. And the same thing is because the record was not available in the States at the time, even though it was, I remember, there was this huge thing called the CMJ Music Marathon, which is
Mm,
like one of the biggest indie music things in New York, which I went to and I played there. And at the time, you had mounted CDs on magazines and things.
yeah.
And it was the song number one on the mounted CD for the CMJ Music Festival. So, and which of course are completely copyright free. So I never got a penny for any of
Yeah.
this. And you don't get money either on records being played on radio in the United States of America. That's the way it works, or doesn't work.
It'll be better with Donald Trump. Don't worry.
Oh, yes, of course. And of course, uh, sorry, like you actually, you nearly, yeah. Anyway, let's move on.
Okay. Yeah.
But
Sure. Yeah. We could put.
it's not, it didn't happen for that reason. And there have been other occasions where, you've always been on the cusp of, and it never quite happened. The only time it really happened was in Japan with their records. Was the only time we felt, yeah, we do have some success, and selling out venues, and being chased by fans and having
Wow.
all these sort of things.
Right.
But which is nice to know for to have the experience. But I don't know if I'm, to be honest, if I'm my personality
Mm,
is right for this type of thing. I don't know
no.
if I'd
No.
been able to cope with it at all.
Sure.
And in fact, I was quite relieved when it didn't. But on the other hand,
Mhm, mhm,
I also feel some frustration, obviously, because
mhm.
when you do something like this for as long as I've been doing it, and with great critical success that I
Right.
cannot complain about, you know, especially at the moment for some reason, but that I've not been in a position where I could, first of all, despite the fact I love my work as a writer and investigator and so forth, it's actually very important to me. But I
Mm,
would have loved to have more time to devote to music. I would have loved to have the means also to tour more when you've got a band like I've got at the moment, and you think I can't really. People don't realize how bloody good we are when we're on
I know.
stage, and
I
only
know.
only a few people have heard us.
Oh,
And the people who've heard us have all told us, "Bloody hell, guys, you're
I know.
you're good."
You're brilliant.
You're good,
Absolutely.
but this would, in a measure of commercial success would have helped me and helped us basically devote more time to music, and also devote more time to playing live, which I haven't done enough. I've done a bit. I haven't done enough over the years. and it's a bit of a vicious circle because if you
I'm sure.
don't have the support, you don't tour enough. And touring now is, and playing is absolutely indispensable if you want your music to receive any attention or to
Definitely.
sell anything. You
Yeah.
have got to tour because the industry is upside down.
But
There's no industry left. So
this
it's
is
basically
exactly.
finding means to survive.
I
Yeah,
know.
it's
It's
gone.
such a sad situation. I mean, I'm a
It's gone.
microbiologist, really, dabbling in music a little bit. Made an album with my friend Yanni here in Spain, which is a great album. Um, but once I start investigating how the whole thing works, you go, "Oh, what?" It's like, "Oh,
Mm.
can't we have the old days back, please?" You
No,
know?
you can't. No, you can't, and it's too
No,
late. The cat is out of the bag.
the cat's out of the bag.
Uh,
I
yeah,
know.
the
I
cat's out of
know.
the bag, and
I know.
the only, I mean, the problem for me is, I mean, obviously, I spend a lot of time thinking about it and talking about it and
Mm,
writing about it too, and
mm.
maybe someday those writings will see the light of day.
Hope so. Yeah.
But it's something that has happened gradually ever since there was this catastrophic end to independent distribution of music in the UK in particular,
Mm,
which was at the very early in the 1990s with the arrival of CDs,
mm.
the collapse of Pinnacle in England, and suddenly the shops starting to close down, and suddenly there was no network through which independent artists could actually
Yeah.
get their product
Yeah.
to the shops. At the same time, we had the incredible decline of the music press, you know,
Mm.
used to sell
It
hundreds of
became,
thousands of copies
of
per
course,
week,
of course.
and basically a social and cultural phenomenon by which music was no longer the most important thing in your life when you were a young man or a young woman.
Mm.
That's gone, and that's gone forever. So I think we need to be a bit more we need to be imaginative about that.
Okay.
In a way, I think people like me are a bit part of a resistance movement in a way because of the
Yes.
type of music we do, because we take more risks perhaps as well,
Mm. Yeah.
and also because we live outside of a biotop which is dominated by a handful of artists who are basically
Yeah.
manufactured
Yeah.
or picked out almost at random. And on the other hand, the fact that the music industry is has become a heritage industry and is going to become even more of that in the future. And that record companies simply do not have established record companies do not have the desire, and they don't have the need either to accompany an artist from and to help the artist grow over a period of years. And now also artists are supposed to do most of their music at home. Record companies don't supply budgets anymore to most of their artists. It's just everybody's doing everything at home, which also leads to the fact everybody's using the same technology, which means
I know. Sounds the
everybody
same.
sounds the same. It's become almost impossible for young. I mean, to be honest, I'm really not jealous. I mean, if you're a young musician today trying to make it,
I know.
I just don't know how you can. I just don't know where I would
Indeed.
start because talent is going to get you absolutely nowhere. It doesn't, it's not enough. So then you need to invest in recording stuff. And if you want to work with other musicians, that makes it even more complicated. And we could carry on like this for forever. And the thing is that people, people from the outside listening to this will feel, oh, it's just yeah, it's just an old fart complaining about good old days and so
Yes,
forth.
carry on, Louis, because talking about young artists with talent.
Yeah, and there's plenty. There are plenty. The problem is not the talent. The talent is not missing. People haven't gone suddenly uncreative or whatever. The problem is that the channels that people from my generation and previous generations, and not many generations after me, I must say, the channels which we could use to actually make people aware of that talent are more or less gone. The independent labels, which everybody started with on an independent label, everybody.
Yeah,
The Smiths did, the Undertones did, everybody did.
sure.
Um, they've gone. And I mean by that, they've totally gone. And there are still a few names that people will be familiar with, but when you look closer, you realize actually they are now part of a bigger corporation.
Right.
So that's gone. The distribution system, which enabled artists, even if they self-produced their records, to actually put them. I remember actually, I remember playing in New York for the first time, arriving. We were doing a residency at Lafayette,
Hmm.
um, at the Fairs on Lafayette Street,
Hmm.
and we had no money to speak of. But I'd taken some records with me from and I just went to New World Records, or whatever they were called, just around the corner. And I went to see the manager. I said, would you take 10 of those? So he took 10 of my records, paid me, and this was the money for our dinner that night. Now, good luck to do that these days. You can't do that. So you can't place your own product anymore. The number of venues has fallen dramatically. For a simple reason is that they're not economically viable. And also the audience has changed. The way the radios pick their playlist has changed. It's now almost entirely numbers and algorithm driven, which
Wow.
means good luck if you're, there is no, I mean, Chris Evans, our friend, what he does is absolutely magnificent, but he's one of the
Magnificent.
only people, is magnificent. His show,
Absolutely.
The Curveball, is one of the great shows. But
Yes.
unfortunately, Chris should be on BBC Radio 6 or BBC 3, and
Absolutely.
he's not. But anyway,
Mm.
so that has gone, and you carry on like this, and you realize, well, also labels which were willing to put a few hundred or a few £1,000s in recording a demo or sending an artist to a studio or get a producer to work with that artist or this group. They don't do it anymore. That's gone. You're on your own, and it gets worse because you don't make money out of streaming. I know something about it. We all know something about it. You cannot make money out of streaming.
No.
So it's not a viable model unless you have billions of views or listens, which in this case, you're part of the super elite. It's a bit, music is evolving a bit like business. Like we have now the Peter
Yeah.
Thiel and the Elon Musks of this world, and then we've got the
Yeah.
rest. And we have got, Taylor Swift is Elon Musk basically, and Ed
Yeah.
Sheeran
For
is
sure.
Peter Thiel.
Absolutely.
I exaggerate, but it's very
It is,
difficult
yeah.
I
Really
exaggerate, but it's
like it.
very difficult. And I really wish, we could do something to help younger artists
Mm.
to help them. But
Mm.
the problem is that we're fighting an economy here, an economic model which simply doesn't work anymore. And the only reason why somebody like me is able to carry on making records is because I've always been dependent on the small but incredibly faithful rock hard fan base,
Yeah.
which also, strangely and happily enough, has been renewed over the years. Like I said, if you go to one of my gigs, you might be surprised that the average age is not going to be 50 or 60 years old. There are actually quite a number of much younger people coming, which means that
Right.
the message is going through.
Just hope.
But
Yeah.
that's I'm very lucky because I come from where I come and from a time where somebody like me, to be honest, the very young man I was when I did my first demo wouldn't stand a chance in hell. Whatever the talent I might have had at the time, wouldn't have a chance in hell to succeed today. And it's a colossal problem, and I do not see any solution for it. And what I see is rather the opposite. I am actually struck by the fact that when I look at um, you know, the names of the artists and the groups, actually, by the way, there are hardly any groups left anymore. But
Mm.
when I see the list of the artists who are going to perform in the big festivals during the summer, I'm astonished. I'm thinking, I've been transported back to the 1980s here, or what? What's the hell? Yeah, and it's becoming inherent. The music it's almost like legacy pop has become a heritage industry, and the big guys who actually control the industry, and there are very, very few of them. It's only three, four companies. I've understood that they stood to make the most profit by exploiting their back catalog. and that was the way. And just you wait until AI is used to
Oh
promote
no,
it.
Louis, don't.
Okay, let's not go there, but it will
Oh,
happen. It will happen,
I know.
and it's because it's a dream for them. Because already when you are walking into a mall, talking like an American now, when you're walking or even in some restaurants, the music that you hear. And last night I was rarely, very rare thing for me, watching a documentary on television, British documentary. And I could tell that the music was AI generated. It was absolutely obvious because I recognize the sounds they use. It's
Yeah.
basically audio logic, the horrible
Oh, it's
tinny
horrible.
sounds,
Oh my
and
God.
also, anyway, doesn't matter. It means that what matters is the fact that 5 years ago, this music would have been either library music done by people, or it would have been commissioned from a composer. So that's gone. And believe me, it's gone for like the bottom has fallen off the market because many people relied on this type of music as a day job, working for library music catalogs, writing the odd cue for a documentary program, writing the odd cue for corporate videos. People use library music. Everybody knows that.
Sure.
This is gone. So we can now say this is gone. There might be a couple of people still doing there in their basement in Soho, but the rest is gone. And you put all these things together, and and that's without talking the most important thing, which is music is no longer a social vector of cohesiveness or a social vector or social political vector. It's gone. It's absolutely gone. The idea that you can federate a younger generation around music is gone. And you will have people saying that, well, but look at the Swifties. And it's possible you have got a few artists or a few performers who will have a fanatical
Hmm.
following, yeah, become a social phenomenon. Yeah, you always
Yeah.
have. But the idea that you can federate around a particular genre of music and whatever it may be it jazz, prog, new metal, doesn't matter. It's becoming niche, more and more niche, and it's becoming totally underground. As you know, probably, I've worked with my friends from, I mean, they really were my friends from Big Big Train, prog
Yeah.
band
Big train. Yeah.
in the past, and we had quite a close relationship at one point because the lead singer David Longdon was somebody tragically died
Yeah.
so young, not
Yeah.
that long ago.
Sure. Yeah.
I said that 4 years ago already.
Mm.
But David had worked with me on a number of records. The lead guitar player was Dave Gregory of XTC, who's
Yes.
obviously played with me and with
Yes.
Martin
Exactly.
Newell as
Fantastic.
well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Danny, who's my longest
Oh,
standing
he's
collaborator,
incredible. Yeah. Superb.
absolutely incredible musician. And we've been
Mm.
working together for 37 years. And Danny
Wow.
was the keyboard player and arranger. So we had loads in common. And Big Big Train, I'm sorry, it's a diversion in a way,
It's okay.
but Big Big Train are probably in the prog world, they are at the very, very top. And
Mm.
I mean at the very, very top. They can
Okay.
headline the biggest prog rock
Sure.
festival in Germany, the Lorelei. Okay, they can do that. Their music has never been played on mainstream radio in this country. They're British. And it's not music that is difficult to listen to. They have got 3-minute songs, which are very catchy,
Yeah.
but they have never, ever been played on BBC Radio 2 or LBC or Capital Gold or whatever you. Never, ever, ever, ever. And these guys sell more records than almost any of the bands that you will hear when you're taking a mini cab and the radio is on. It's gone. And we have to understand that it's gone. So we're the same way that jazz went in the 1950s and 1960s and suddenly lost its popular appeal and its relevance to large number of people. It doesn't mean that there were no great jazz players emerging.
Sure.
There were, and there still are, but you
Yes.
become a minority
Mm.
pursuit. What was perhaps the most important pursuit for young people in particular from Elvis onwards, and then throughout the 60s and throughout the 70s and the punk movement, which rekindled that, and then the 80s and even the 90s, and then it stops. This great federating instrument, tool, weapon that is popular music has ceased to have any of those roles. And it's economically driven, but it's also socially driven. It's
Yeah.
fragmented world, it's an atomized world
It's
with
a little bit of
people.
slightly disturbing in that way, actually.
It's
And
very
when,
disturbing.
yeah, and when you talk to people like, oh, you're on Spotify, it's always flipping Spotify. And,
Yeah.
uh, but anyway, anyway, let's, this,
Yes.
we did a
It's
little review. You
masterpiece.
probably saw the video the other day, Louis,
Hmm.
and it's a great piece of work. So smooth, so tight. The guys are great. Um, and yeah, I mean, how did you get on with this in terms of sales
Well,
distribution, people listening to it?
well,
Yeah.
I mean, there are fortunately a few oases left, and one of them is to be found in an unlikely place, Hamburg, where this label called Tapete,
Yeah, definitely.
which is run by a chap called Gunter Buskis.
Mhm.
And obviously he's got a team with him, has
Great.
managed to find a kind of model that works.
Okay.
In as much he does three things, but it necessitates a lot of know-how to do this.
Mm.
On one hand is Tapete and the labels associated with Tapete, because it's not the only one, is a absolutely essential reservoir of krautrock, classic krautrock,
Mhm.
like bands like Faust and people like that. So like you will have the legacy aspect, like old recordings which are being, not just repackaged but remastered and presented to new audiences, and there is still a public for that. Then they're also looking for young artists whom they try to promote to the best of their ability.
Okay.
And then they also have this third stream, I'm not speaking in the music sense here, this third stream, which would be people like me, i.e., people who've got a history already in pop music and do not have relationships with major labels anymore, like
Mhm.
people like Lloyd Cole. The Clientele did one album for them. I mean, they're with Merge Records now. The
Mhm.
Monochrome sets are on Tapete as well.
Mhm.
And, John Howard. There have been, I mean, and on the other hand, you've got new bands like Friedrich Sunlight, which is a band I always name drop because they're absolutely wonderful. Anyway,
Great. Carry on.
but um, Tapete was celebrating its 10th anniversary with a concert at the Lexington, which is one of the few venues left in London where middling acts can perform. And Robert Forster of the
Mhm.
Go-Betweens was performing, who is also a Tapete. And I mean, it's all very incestuous because there's, if you did a rock film industry, you will find out that I've worked with his oboe player like 25 years ago, and I
Fantastic.
worked with Lindy on the drums. And anyway, and one of my good friends was an Austrian singer-songwriter called Robert Rotifer, who's based in Canterbury, approached me and said, "Why don't you join the fun and play?
Great.
Why don't you play?" And I said,
Well,
"With whom?" And he said, "Well, we've got a band. It's myself, Robert. It's Ian Button from Death in Vegas and
okay.
Pippa
Yeah.
Cambridge and other bands,
Sure.
who's absolutely extraordinary drummer. Andy Lewis, who used to play bass for Paul Weller and
Yeah.
was in Pimlico and so forth, and is a producer, acid jazz, all these sort of things. And so we gave it a go, and we had one rehearsal in Holloway Road, and it went down extremely well. And I thought, crikey, this is serious band, this.
Oh, that's great.
And so we did this gig, which went down very well. And we thought, well, what about doing a record together? And Tapete were all for it. And
Brilliant.
actually, Tapete might have actually mentioned that. And this is the record we did. The name of the band being the Night Mail. And so Louis Philippe and the Night Mail. And it was the first time that I did something I've always wanted to do, which is to record an album live. Which obviously you need very good musicians.
Sure.
You need songs which lend themselves to this,
Mm.
and you need a really good place to record in, which we found at Rimshot Studios in Kent, which is an absolute paradise in the middle of the Kent countryside.
Is that where one of the videos is on YouTube with you in a
Yeah,
barn conversion
yeah,
or something?
yeah. It's
Oh, it's
absolutely
stunning.
glorious.
Stunning.
It's
Yeah.
stunning. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
stunning place.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, so we recorded the album more or less live. And we took it from there. I mean, when I said we recorded all the rhythm tracks live, and then afterwards I did my vocals. But the idea was that there's no click track, there's no programming, none of this. It's just musicians playing music, which is also the way we've done the new album, the new Louis Philippe and the Nightmare album, which is going to be released in not too long.
Well, it's
Uh,
very quick. I understand Chris Evans is going to be playing it next week. Is it?
Uh,
No, no.
he might play one song from it
Soon. Soon.
because
Okay.
there's going to be a so-called single, advanced single with a video.
Wow.
Yeah, and a beautiful one, I must say.
Well,
Anyway, I
let's
won't
let,
say
let's
more.
let's
I
lead
won't
on
say
into
more.
this. Let's lead on into this because we're all so excited about it, Louis. So, and we could
Well,
talk.
we're very excited. We're very excited about the record because also the other thing is that Danny has joined us for it
Oh,
as a Dutch
excellent.
on the Night Mail,
Oh, wow.
and
Fantastic.
so yeah, which is great. And I've played the I've sent the record to a few musician friends,
Mhm.
and they all say, yeah, well done.
Oh, excellent.
And I think we had this feeling when we finished it. Andy Lewis and myself, Andy playing the role of producer.
Mhm.
And when Andy and I put the finishing touch to it, we were happy with what we'd done. It's like we had achieved. You can't say better than that as a
No,
musician. You
none
can't.
at all.
You
Mhm.
obviously know you're the best judge of your own music. You're the harshest judge of your own music.
Mm.
So you know if what you've done is good in the way. Yeah. And one thing which is objectively um, identifiable is the fact that you have achieved what you set out to do. And and then some. It's like you have gone beyond. And I think we've been quite brave in the way we've done this record. I think it's probably the most psychedelic record I've ever done in my life.
Interesting. That's
Uh,
psychedelic. Okay.
well,
Like
psychedelia means many, many different
Oh, it
things.
does. It's a big, yeah, it's
Some
a big,
people, yeah, it's a very wide church
yeah.
because
Mm.
people think that some of the Manchester scene was psychedelic in nature. To me, it's not.
No. Mhm.
My kind of psychedelia is more electric prunes, right? So
Okay.
and that type of thing.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, and the Dukes of Stratosphere. So
It
yeah,
sounds
that's what we can look forward. That's what we can look forward to. And but we shall see again. We can only put it out. I hope it gets some coverage. One of the very, very satisfying things about the previous album, the one that you were showing a while ago, Thunderbirds, is that we did actually this time get properly reviewed in the what's left of the music press, and the reviews were terrific, and
no.
including in Britain, which for me had been a really sore point.
I know. Oh,
And even sorer point for me is the fact that in France, I do have a kind of fanatical following,
right.
but it's a small group of people.
Mm.
Um, but on the other hand, I've always thought, and that, I don't want to sound arrogant, and I probably am, but I don't think there's any pop musician in France has got the track record I've got. I honestly think so. I'm looking around, I'm looking at the guys, I'm thinking,
Gosh.
yeah, okay, all right, fine. But which I know sounds very arrogant, but was the source of some frustration in the past
Mm.
because You're never a prophet in your homeland. It's
Exactly. You know, I was going to
they
say
say.
that to you today.
Oh, never, never, never.
No,
Because also, they've never known how to package me in France because I do sing in French
I
from time to
know.
time, but
I know.
but you can hear I'm bilingual, so I do sing in English. I dream in English. I most of my life is lived in English and not in French, and also the type of music that I do doesn't sit well because of my insistence on musicianship
Yeah.
is not something that for the French um, rock critics and so forth. They love narratives, they love stories, they love personalities.
Okay.
And it's not that I don't have a narrative. I've got plenty of narratives.
I'm
It's not
sure
that
you
I
do.
don't have a backstory. And it's,
Big time.
okay, I am not,
Big
but
time.
it's not the kind that they're interested in.
Okay.
They're not interested in that. It's about presentation. Presentation is super important. And maybe it's for this reason or that or other reasons, but they have more or less ignored me throughout my career. Like even at the time when I had some, if I would call it success, but recognition in the US, for example,
Mm.
they wouldn't review my records. And I say we, I mean, my friend Bertrand and Björgala,
Mm. That's right. Yeah.
producer,
Excellent. Yeah.
um, and we couldn't really understand what was going on.
No.
Why is it that they're not
Yeah.
even covering it,
What's the
even to say
problem?
it's
What's
rubbish?
the flipping
But they
problem?
were completely ignored, and it's always been underground, which is another thing, which is in a way very much in keeping with the L Records mystique and our approach to music, is
Mm.
that despite the fact that we did and I do a type of music that most people would consider to be quite sophisticated,
Very much so.
and
Yeah.
and our attitude and our approach has always been very punk, as in we are totally underground,
Yeah.
and we've never played the game that others wanted us to play. And of
Mm.
course, and also I think that that puzzles people because if we were, and I use the we here, because I put people like Sean O'Hagan in exactly the same
Exactly.
category.
Yeah.
One of
For
my
sure.
a very good friend of mine, as you know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and we are in the same category.
Mm.
And of course, Sean has had greater measure of commercial success than I have, but we are more or less in the same situation now.
Yes, indeed.
And but I think uh, for some reason, people, when I say people, I would say the media, the music media, what's left of them, we're not good copy. We're not good copy. And,
Mm. Interesting.
you will see very, I don't know if you're struck by that, but the whole way the musical press works, and particularly reviewing works in a general sense, if you look at reviews which are published in the broadsheets, be it the Times or
Mm.
the Mail or the Guardian or whatever, none of them will actually talk about music anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
It will be about the backstory.
Uh-huh.
It will be about the so-called the lyrical content sometimes, the presentation,
Mm.
the controversy.
Mm.
But good luck to you if you want to have any kind of idea of the music that you're going to listen to.
For sure. Yeah.
And the problem is that so it's about presentation, and also because I think you always depend on the references which your readership will share with you.
Mm.
And those references, this kind of common book of pop prayer, right, has gone because nobody goes to pop mass anymore. So it's gone, and there are no references, common grid of references, or it is only a grid of references which would be understandable by an older readership. And
Mm.
therefore, when you do, and I'd love to review a Taylor Swift album, I'd love to do it from a musical standpoint.
Musical standpoint. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because then I would explain why it's shit. That
Yeah.
I can. Objectively, I will explain why the recording, the way it's recorded is wrong, the way the
I
voices
know.
are treated is
Oh, I know,
wrong.
Louis. Look, can I say we're running out of time. So say something
Oh,
quickly about the new album before we have to go, because that is
mm,
where we're going to be.
okay. Well, it's
We've got
certainly
about
is
30
nothing.
seconds.
Okay, well, it's got nothing to do with Taylor Swift or Ed Sheeran.
Absolutely.
So you're on safe ground, and
Good.
just my only message would be buy it.
Buy the record. Pathways to the Sea. What a great title. And
Okay,
there's some nature in there, I get a feeling maybe. So, Louis, it's been fantastic. Thanks so much for your time today. Bless
my
you.
pleasure.
Best wishes for the future. And we look forward to the new music. Thank you so much for joining us. And thanks to everyone who's going to be watching the video. We're going to keep pushing you. And as you say in this article, you're a pain in the ass. I'm in here for the long haul. Stay in for the long haul. That's a great thing that Chris said.
All right, you take care.
And you, my friend. God bless
Bye
you. Thanks
bye.
so much for your time, Louis. Bye for now. Bye.